Alright, camera's facing the sky today because I'm just going to be reading a lot from my notes. I got about 6 or 7 pages from the last couple days. Um, just kind of adding on to things I've been writing, and got my first viewer. Let's go. So if you liked the last message, I hope you learned something from it. Got a lot here today. Um, So I guess just want to start with how much that I enjoy complexities and dissecting all these different thoughts and areas, and it really keeps your brain stimulated. So it can be a way where you get stuck in that kind of thought process of, or that loop of searching for information, which it's great for learning, but it's hard to detach from ideas and get back to your center after that and come to a more grounded place. Um, so if you ever, catch yourself doing that, then you just want to simplify some of your like belief systems or interests. They It's a butterfly and a spider running around me right now. All right. What was I saying? Yeah. So to detach from some of those systems, you want to take a step back and bring a fresh perspective to be able to approach it in a new light. And one of the prominent perspectives where I do a lot of my internal work from is from astrology, because I'm able to tap into the different archetypes and realize like which specific energies relate to what I'm trying to focus on and what I'm trying to fix internally. And when you do that for a long time, you look up after, months or a year or something, and you've totally revolutionized the way that you think and view the world. And I'll give one example from astrology recently, which is how for months Jupiter was in Cancer, and that time for me was a lot about expanding my internal state, how I interact with myself and my thoughts, and being able to flow with my emotions more. And Jupiter's now moved into Leo, which is all about expanding outwards, like being able to courageously express yourself, and all the wisdom that you've gained, being able to act upon it. And that's like really just such a big theme in your life in general. Like, sure, I've came to that realization through astrology, but sometimes the conceptualization of all these different alignments and shit, it can be hard to ground in that stuff after. It's When you're conceptualizing, it's great for getting you to think outside the box, dream bigger, but you have to eventually change the container that you're thinking in to be able to ground that in. So simplifying and connecting the themes, really. And what's helped me here is going from that and switching to thinking in terms of like the four elements, because in your daily experiences you can flip your thoughts on the spot to not get stuck in specific thought loops. For example, if you're we'll start with like fire. If you're angry or frustrated, and you don't know where to direct your passion, then you want to introduce a little bit of each of the other elements. So you want to ground yourself. You take a second and you just breathe and feel whatever the emotional overflow is. And in alignment, you're adding water, air, and earth to the fire. And that's just one example of how you can use that specific perspective to transmute and change your energy on the spot. And there's a certain spiritual technique, I guess you can call it a technique, pentimento. And this is a visible trace of earlier painting beneath a layer or layers of paint on a canvas. So that's just reappearance in a painting. You have the original drawn or painted element, which is eventually painted over by the artist. So in this context, it would be like astrology as a bigger conceptualization or understanding, but then you paint it over with a different perspective and it adds to it. You're simplifying, but you're adding to it at the same time. And spiritually, pentimento represents the beauty of our layered history, the grace in changing one's mind, and the acceptance of our past. Refers to the visible traces of an artist's earlier drafts or mistakes that bleed through their final artwork. And that's just beautiful, right? Like, we're always gonna, when we're continuously working on something, you're gonna look back when you add new things and see, like, oh, how was I ever doing it a certain way? And you're gonna look back at them as mistakes, but maybe in the moment you're building on it. So that's what pentimento is about. And a couple different interpretations would be like embracing growth over perfection, right? Just as an artist paints over an initial sketch to create a better piece, we frequently outgrow old beliefs, mistakes, or past versions of ourselves. Pentimento honors those early drafts as essential parts of the final masterpiece. And this allows you to return to the center, right? It's the power of receptance. Highlights the spiritual freedom of course correcting, and it teaches us that it is never too late to make a new choice and return to a more authentic path. Another interpretation would be honoring scars as depth. Instead of hiding our vulnerabilities or past regrets, pentimento serves as a reminder that our lived experiences, even the ones we try to cover up, add invisible richness, depth, and character to who we are today. And there's a lot of examples of that in art. Like Picasso had the old guitarist, right? I can't think of what I was trying to relate to there, but you'll have understood the message behind it, I'm sure, hopefully. Um, but yeah, so after, you go from, one container, in this example, astrology, to another, which is the four elements, 12 signs in astrology to the four elements, and then to simplify it again, the next theme would be just energy. And for electricity to flow, you need negative and positive charges. But once you're able to regulate your body, your emotions, and your thoughts, you're able to direct your passion in an aligned way. And then introducing a negative charge to an already positive charge doesn't work, because you're now vibrating at a higher frequency. So you need to introduce another positive charge to an already positive one to keep the energy flowing. So to ground in like the elements, to keep the, or to add a new frame and to simplify, when you're in alignment, fire is not just about your inner passion, but it's visualizing it. So thinking about fire less from the lens of like the emotion of it, but more of the aligned form of it, and that's visualization. Visualizing your inner fire and adding in all the others so that you're able to take aligned action towards your dreams. And air isn't just like thoughts being in your head, but focusing, and it's directing your attention towards your breath, which helps with grounding. But when aligned, it's focus. It could be focus on action, focus on ground, like, yeah, whatever. And water, not just emotional flow, but when it's in alignment, it's all about feeling. You want to feel into things. That's how you, that's how you manifest. That's how you get into the flow. And obviously, earth is just grounding, right? Your physical body. And so, reframing all of these from maybe a negative perspective of like, oh, I don't know how to control my anger or my emotions, to like, what is the aligned version of it, then you really turn them from just the conceptual understanding to like practical application of it in your daily life. And when you're able to control your body, your emotions, and your thoughts, you're able to simplify even further, and you begin to control energy in general. And I know I'm just saying a lot of words, but if you're able to get an understanding of these things first, then it just makes it so much easier to act upon the knowledge you have without needing to think through like, oh, well, how do I go from this to this? And sure, there's some people that just take aligned action in their lives and they don't need a conceptual understanding of these different abstract topics, but some of us need that. And I guess I'm just trying to give a better understanding of these things in an actual practical way. um, but you can really start to use these different perspectives as tools. um, Either, I don't even want to say this, but like, I was thinking this the other day when I was writing this through about like, I simplified even further to like an equation of like how to reach flow state, because I simplified so far that a negative and a positive charge equals a positive. So then, to keep the energy flowing, you introduce a positive charge to a positive, as positive squared. So the equation I got was positive squared, but then if you have that, you're eventually the energy will stop flowing, so you have to introduce a negative again. But the positive squared, it's it's too much positive. The negative doesn't affect you anymore, so it turns into like gratitude basically. So like, think you could add anything into the two positives. Play and love plus gratitude equals flow, or the spirit of it. And I was like, in the moment, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. Felt like Einstein, we have these big ideas, and then the next day I go back outside to do my daily, morning meditation again, and I can't really tap into the flow. I'm trying to use this simplified equation and like think my way through it, which now I'm able to understand how I got there, but it's not a pathway of getting there. It's just something you feel into. And this leads me to the next day where my buddy is playing this game, and his mission was destroy Loki's Yggdrasil tapping device. Alright, hear me out. So, it's built by Loki at the roots of Yggdrasil to steal and exploit the raw temporal power and magic infused into the world tree's sap. Yggdrasil is the tree of life, right? So this is a lot about parasitic control versus cosmic order. So the next day after doing that, I came into this realization that there's no you can't all right, let me just read this cuz yeah. So tapping into the world tree represents spiritual parasitism and manipulation of natural order. Yggdrasil represents the ultimate macrocosm, the interconnectedness of all time, life, and realms. By mechanicalizing the sacred tree with a tapping device, or like the equation, Loki symbolizes the shadow aspect of the ego, which is trying to force, capture, and weaponize the universe's infinite life force for personal dominion rather than flowing in harmony with it. And I was like, oh damn, I can't use this as an equation to tap into flow. Like, that's me trying to control it. And then it goes on about the theft of temporal destiny, which is spiritually equivalent to stealing free will or fracturing fate. And the Tree of Life represents the unfoldment of destiny, and Loki's device represents an artificial disruption of that destiny, an attempt by a trickster archetype to control time and rewrite the organic spiritual evolution of the universe. And because we can come to these like super big spiritual epiphanies, or like when we're in a super oneness state or divine state, we feel like we have all the answers, so we want to record those answers to be able to get back to that point. But it's about releasing control and surrendering, knowing that it comes to you whenever you need it. And that was a big realization for me, that I have to remind myself constantly that acceptance and surrender is really a daily practice and application. And talked about the subversion of sacrifice as well. The tapping device stands in direct spiritual contrast to how Norse gods historically interact with Yggdrasil. In ancient lore, Odin sacrificed himself to the tree to earn the wisdom of the runes, and Loki gives up his own freedom to physically sustain timelines. The tapping device represents the exact opposite archetype. Instead of sacrificing oneself for the cosmic tree, it aggressively drains the tree for oneself. And if you take a second to think about that, it can be almost a scary thing to think about, like how how much we would have to sacrifice ourselves in order to gain wisdom, or to allow destiny to take us where we need to be. Because we we want to have, great jobs and have the money to be able to provide and do all these things, And that can be, when we get attached to these ideas, it's a form of control where we're not surrendering, and then we're blocking the flow of different blessings coming into our lives because we're so focused on a specific outcome. And so that is a very, different couple days of the first day of being very, excited and all this creative energy, and then the next day of being like, oh well, you can't tap into that, you have to let it come to you. And then I came to another definition, which will kind of tie in the energy of like going back and forth from maybe being in a flow state to trying to get back into it, or being in a state of surrender and acceptance. And this is centrifuge. Spiritually, a centrifuge represents a period of intense energetic sifting where the rapid spinning motion of life forces heavy, toxic, or superficial elements outward, allowing your core essence, truth, and clarity to remain stable at the center. It symbolizes spiritual purification, divine testing, and the separation of the ego from your soul. So, this is a very strong process which can feel very dense while you're in it, and can feel like you're being pulled in many different directions. And it's, again, it's, you have to surrender to the process. And going back to pentimento, it's like some negative traits or experiences will start to pop back up, even if you've gone over them many, many times. They will continue to pop up in order to eventually let go of them. It takes time for you to really change your responses and release emotional charges to certain things, which will eventually not even bother you anymore. So it's just keeping that in mind if you're going through a spiritual centrifuge. And I'll give you a couple more themes on what that is. And the first one is sifting of the soul, right? It's just, so a centrifuge, it separates liquid from dense matter based on weight. This period separates your true spiritual intentions from superficial desires or societal conditioning. And I talked about that, right? It's, if you're, trying to push for more pay or a better job, those are some societal conditioning of thinking that you need to attain these things rather than feeling into things that you already have within yourself. And it acts as divine testing where illusions and ego fall away so that your genuine faith and purpose are revealed. And yeah, I mean, this will really test your faith because when you are able, I mean, it's hard to surrender those things, right? Things that we desire, things that we want. It's it's very hard, and it, you just have to trust the universe. I mean, you just have to. And when I've done that, when I've let go of things and trusted the universe usually will either give you a lesson or a blessing. And the next theme is energy and expansion. And in esoteric traditions, the outward spinning pole mirrors centrifugal force as the expansion of creation and the dynamic flow of energy away from the source. So it pushes you to take your inner spiritual discoveries out into the world through action and service. And this is what we were talking about with in astrology too, like different alignments moving from an internal place and having these processes start to, create enough friction where it pushes you to act through service, to spread your wisdom, spread your knowledge, and to find your center, really. Because the centrifuge inherently relies on a central axis. So, spiritually, this is a reminder to find your inner stillness, your quietude, and your grounding. When the spin of your life is chaotic, connecting with the center is what maintains your stability. It's not finding stability through external things like, oh, I made a fat commission check this week, so now I'm stable. Or I haven't been paid in a while, so I'm not feeling as stable. No, you're always going to find it from an internal place. If you're always relying on something externally, you're not going to have stability or foundation in your life. And that's why some people that come into a lot of money aren't able to hold on to it because they don't have the internal foundations built. And it's just, first of all, finding out what your center is, what that means for you, but then being able to come back to it when, and sometimes it's harder to come back when you let the chaos in. But if you're coming from a place where you're already grounded, you've started your day off in stillness and in quiet, then the chaos will have less of an effect on you, and you'll be way more stable throughout your days, and you'll be able to act from alignment much more often. The last one, the last theme is purification and refinement. Much like the biblical concept of sifting wheat from the chaff, a centrifuge experience is a form of sanctification. The turmoil or pressure you may be experiencing is clearing out spiritual impurities to bring clarity and peace. And this is a theme that it sounds so like nice, right? Like, oh, like finally, like after being in a centrifuge of like wobbling back and forth from like super positive high vibrational experiences to slower, maybe more chaotic experiences, and then the end, you hear the end is purification, bringing like peace and clarity after releasing all these negative things. But you can't be focusing on like waiting for that time to come of peace and clarity, because you also, clarity isn't something that you can force by creating a solution for a problem, but more getting rid of the problem itself, releasing it from your thoughts so that you're more free and present in the moment, which allows clarity to flow back to you, right? And it's not saying like, oh, you have to surrender and get rid of the problems and you never have any problems. No, it's just saying like, take time away from that. You release it from your perspective, and then you're able to act from a place of alignment after that. And like a dryer, I guess, a centrifuge machine's primary function uses rapid rotation to separate substances of different densities or to remove moisture. And yeah, I guess just remember to give yourself time to put yourself in the dryer and separate those denser negative emotions and release release the weight of your experiences throughout your day, or you know questioning your future, to come to a freer, calmer state, and you will find clarity there, and you'll be able to act from more alignment. um, but yeah, that's all I got today. I feel like there's definitely more messages with that. Shoot. See, I got a new bracelet today. Camera's going crazy. I'm trying to pick it up. Um, it's called Dragon's Blood. Pretty fire. I don't know. I've been into a bunch of different bracelets and crystals and stuff recently, and it's some people think it's like super mystical, like I don't know, he's saging the house or something, but it's not supposed to be. Well, it can be, but it's not. For me, it's not a super mystical thing. It's just having specific intentions behind those things allows me to, if I'm in a chaotic of mind, I can go grab a certain crystal and envelop myself in the essence of what that's supposed to bring out, and it allows me to take a step back from my mind, come to it with a different perspective, and we're good. We're chilling. Everything's fucking peaches, man. Fuck. All right, I'm out of here.